What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. It's already team selection time for Game Week 34 plus. The last game of Game Week 33 is not quite done yet, but there's only Spurs and Everton left before the next game week kicks off. And then there's going to be another one on Saturday, so it's a great time to be playing FPL. As always, in this video, I'm going to talk you through how my team did or is doing in Game Week 33 and how I'm looking for Game Week 34 plus, including transfers and captain. Captain might be a little bit different this week. Let's jump into it. So far, Game Week 33 plus is going okay, I would say. I'm on a green arrow around 30,000 places. And I'm not expecting that to go down too much tonight for Spurs versus Everton. I don't think the likes of Son and Kane, etc. are highly owned. Obviously, Richarlison could be a problem as well. But I've got Calvert-Lewin, so I do have one player involvement. Obviously, he hasn't scored in the first 3 games, but I'm hoping for something tonight. That would really help out with the rank. 66 points, total of 1,901. So Man United is where it's at again. I only own 2 attackers. 3 would have been brilliant for Bournemouth, especially the likes of Greenwood. But I had Harry Maguire, who did make a mistake for the first goal, was nutmegged. And then De Gea with another mistake, getting kind of beaten at his near post, which shouldn't have happened, but it did. So I lost that clean sheet. But Fernandes, captain, I did switch back to him in the end. I was on Martial for a little bit. Salah I didn't really consider because Liverpool just maybe not looking quite as good since they won the title. Obviously against Man City, they were kind of dominated. But it was Aston Villa, but still, Aston Villa have been defending a little bit better since the restart. So I didn't go for Salah. Martial nearly getting the same amount of points as Fernandes. Anyway, De Bruyne not starting. I thought that might happen. Mahrez thought he would start. Didn't do anything and got brought off before 60 minutes, which was really painful. What makes this whole team worse is I played Charlie Taylor because he had Sheffield United at home, not really renowned for their goal-scoring ability, especially since the restart. And I thought if Nick Pope does get a clean sheet, it won't feel quite as bad. Taylor had a clean sheet for a while, and who goes and breaks it? Egan, who is sat second on my bench with 10 points. Extremely frustrating, but that's the way it goes. I did bench Saiss in the end. He got 0 points against Arsenal. I didn't know if Arsenal would win that game, but I felt like they would score, so I'm really happy with that decision. Otherwise, the team went okay. The fact that the majority of the points came from Man United players didn't really help with a big green arrow because we know they are so well owned at the moment. But still, I put the captaincy on the player that scored the highest amount of points for me this week. The chances of Calvert-Lewin beating 15 points is very unlikely anyway, and there's no chance I would have captained him against Spurs. Otherwise, Trent coming in with more points. Foster with 6 saves, bringing it up to 3 points, but another non-clean sheet. Let's hope that's different for Game Week 34. Let's see how we're looking for next game week. So starting off with the defenders, as always, I've only got 1 free transfer again this week. 104.3 million squad value, but only 0.1 million in the bank. So there's not much I can do in terms of upgrades unless I take a second player out as well, which I'll talk about when I talk about my transfers. But looking at the defence, Foster is in goal. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time I've owned him now. If he cannot get a clean sheet against Norwich, then we are just done. He's never going to get a clean sheet for the rest of the season. I already know he was a bad pick. I didn't realise it would be this bad. Martinez for Arsenal's done really well. Pope's done really well as well. But Norwich at home, surely even Ben Foster can get a clean sheet against them. So fingers crossed for that one. In terms of my defence, if we forget about goalkeepers for a second, I'm pretty happy with it. Probably for most of the rest of the season. Are there other players that I would like? I mean, Azpilicueta at Chelsea could be an option. Alonso, maybe if he wins his place back. But would I be happy about playing him every week, not knowing if he's going to start? Probably not. So Azpilicueta at Chelsea, potentially an option. Elsewhere, look, double up on Liverpool could work as well. But I guess my main point is I don't really have a standout defender that I feel I absolutely have to go and get. Liverpool's fixtures are pretty good for the next couple. After that, they're a bit trickier, but we know how good Trent is anyway. And Egan, Taylor and Saiss, between them, have quite good fixtures for the rest of the season. So I don't need to play all 3 of them at once. I can kind of rotate them around. And as we already know, we've spoken about a lot, Harry Maguire, Man United have got really good fixtures for the rest of the season as well, apart from maybe Leicester on the final day. So I expect some clean sheets. A bit frustrating they did concede 2 to Bournemouth, but that's not really how things have gone recently. I think before that it was 6 clean sheets in 8, now it's 6 in 9, so still a pretty good record. Aston Villa haven't exactly been free scoring, so I'm pretty happy with Maguire. Don't get me wrong, if I could switch to Greenwood up front, would I? Probably. If I could switch to Wan-Bissaka, would I? Probably. But I just don't think that's going to be worth a transfer before the end of the season. I just think, will that net me a few more points? Maybe. Is it going to net me enough to make that transfer worthwhile? I'm not so sure. So I'm just going to keep Harry Maguire for now. Plus, I can still picture that goal from a set piece. It is coming. Surely within the next 5 game weeks, he'll get at least 1 goal for me. I'll be very happy with that. And like I said, with Trent, look, we might see some Liverpool rotation. We saw a little bit of it in the last game when they played Aston Villa. Firmino missed out and Origi played there. They changed some of the central midfielders, but the back 4 was the same as always, and obviously Alisson in goal as well. So I do think we might see Nico Williams start at some point right back instead of Trent Alexander-Arnold, but when that will be and whether Trent will even come on, I'm not really too worried, because if he completely misses out, then I've got other defenders that are playing on the bench. If he doesn't miss out and comes on for kind of 20 to 30 minutes, yes, that would be frustrating, but I just don't think it's going to happen that often where I should worry about owning him. So defence looks good for the long run. Foster, look, it's Norwich. Let's hope he can get something. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with it. So adding in midfielders, I am playing that power 5 now. Kevin De Bruyne, Fernandes, Martial, Salah and Mahrez. It looks pretty good, to be honest, at least on paper. The Man United boys absolutely going nowhere. The fact that Kevin De Bruyne didn't start the last game, it really does make me feel like putting him straight in as captain against Newcastle. So the reason I'm doing that, and maybe, and it is a big maybe, not captaining Fernandes, because I have captained him kind of twice in the last 3 game weeks. There's probably no real reason to do that again. But Aston Villa have defended a little bit better since the restart. So they're averaging 5 shots in the box conceded versus kind of 11.8 before lockdown. So they've kind of halved the amount of shots they're conceding. Against Liverpool, they only conceded 3 shots in the box. So maybe a little bit unlucky to concede 2 goals. Now, don't get me wrong, people will say Liverpool were pretty rubbish in that game, and I'm sure if they had Firmino in their normal kind of first choice 11, they may have performed a little bit better. And they weren't on top of their game, let's say that. I think that's fair to say. But at the same time, Aston Villa, you've got to give them a lot of credit. They did defend very well, gave them very few good chances to score. Ultimately, still ended up losing the game. So I'd expect Man United to score as well and probably win that game as well. 2, maybe 3 goals. So in that case, I still think Fernandes is a great captain option. I still think Martial is a good option as well. But for me, I'm still trying to go a little bit different with my captaincy choice. I felt like a lot of people would still go Liverpool last week, so I went Man United. I think Fernandes ended up being quite a popular captain anyway. But I think a lot of people will stick for that Aston Villa game, and rightly so. I'm not really saying it's a bad idea. But I think Kevin De Bruyne might be a little bit of a differential going into kind of next week. Newcastle at home, not an amazing fixture, but not an awful one by any stretch. And let's be fair, if you watch that Southampton versus Man City game, Man City should have scored quite a few times. Look, there were some really good blocks. You can't fault the defenders for that. The goalkeeper, McCarthy, was on fire. He was actually on my bench for last week. Was never going to play him, of course. But on another day, City scored 2 or 3 goals, and it's a completely different result. I do think it was a little bit weird that they took off Mahrez and Sterling to be replaced by Kevin De Bruyne and Foden before 60 minutes. I felt like one of the wingers should have probably stayed on. But if we now think that De Bruyne starts the next game, it's going to be a totally different team no matter who else plays. He does kind of run things, he creates things. And so I do think if maybe one of David Silva or Bernardo miss out, Kevin De Bruyne starts, maybe with Foden and one of Mahrez or Sterling, whoever it might be, I think he'll just be a good option this week. Obviously, he's on penalties as well, which really helps. So currently, he's my captain. Mahrez, people are getting a little bit worried about already. He did come off before 60 minutes, and that is something that can happen. And will he or will he not start against Newcastle? It's a tough one. I don't really know. My gut instinct is he will start again. He started the first 4. So will he suddenly start missing games? I'm not quite sure about that. So I'm hoping he starts at least. And I do think the thing with Man City is there's quite a big upside. If they do start, there is potential for huge points. And I think you've really got to have watched that Southampton game versus looking at the result to see what could have happened on another day. And the last midfielder to talk about is Mo Salah. So I don't think, I'm thinking of taking him out. Let's just say that straight away. And I know people will be against it. It's Brighton, then it's Burnley. They're 2 good fixtures. I'm not going to captain Mo Salah for the rest of the season. I pretty much told myself that last week and I didn't do it. This week it's Brighton away. I just feel that Fernandes or De Bruyne are better captains this week. Next week it's Burnley at home. Could be good. My main worry with Liverpool is not that Salah or Mane are going to miss a load of games. It's that they will rotate certain players. And as soon as they take out a few players, like maybe Klopp only makes 1, 2 or 3 changes per game, but that could affect the rest of the team. It's just that balance and that kind of fluidity they have as a first choice 11, knowing how each other plays. Like when you take Firmino out of the team, that suddenly makes Mane and Salah probably slightly worse options. So I don't expect him to necessarily miss the last game because he's just had a rest. But could one of Mane or Salah miss out in the next 2 games? Potentially. Maybe I'm clutching at straws. I don't know. But it makes me think I could remove him. And so I am considering it. considering I'm not going to captain him. Now, who I go for is a really tough choice because there's lots of different options. And most of them are not really punts, but they're not kind of standout picks. So for just one transfer moves, there's Pulisic for Chelsea. There's Foden, who I expect to start the next game, but will he keep starting after that? Probably not. There's also Antonio at West Ham, looks really good. He's got the highest non-penalty expected goals so far since the restart of all players. Obviously, Kane might have something to say about that tonight because he hasn't played yet in Game Week 33. But Antonio looks like a good option. Or even Son. Now, I know Son hasn't looked great, but Spurs play Bournemouth next. And Man United destroyed Bournemouth. And I'm not saying that Spurs are as good attacking team as Man United because they're not. But you'd expect them to get 1 or 2, maybe even 3 goals in that game. So I quite like Son as an option as well. And then there's the option of maybe doing 2 transfers. So I'll bring my forwards up as well and then talk through that as well. So I've got Nketiah on the bench against Leicester. Will he or will he not start that? I think he probably will, but I'm not going to play him just in case. So my other 2 forwards that I would start are Calvert-Lewin against Southampton at home and Jimenez against Sheffield United away. Now, a few people are starting to get a little bit worried about Jimenez because he's blanked twice in a row. A huge 2 games with no returns after 2 goals in 2 before that. Now, Wolves' fixtures are not bad towards the end of the season. I actually think defensively they're pretty good. Like if you want to play Saiss or Doherty or whoever it might be. But for attacking points, yeah, maybe they're not actually that great. Sheffield United away, yes, Sheffield United have not been great since the restart, but they've got O'Connell back now. They pretty much have their first choice 11 available if Chris Wilder wants to play them. So maybe it's not the best time to be playing them for Jimenez. I'm not against getting rid of him. The problem for my particular team, and obviously this video is about my team specifically, is who do I go for? I've spoken already that I can't get Greenwood unless I take Maguire out, so that is a -4 option I could do. With Calvert-Lewin, I need to see how he plays against Spurs, but Southampton at home is a fairly good fixture as well. So again, I'm not really looking to force him out, but it is an option for transfer, which I'll talk about in a sec. With Jimenez, again, who else do I go for? I'm just not sure in the striker category right now, which is pretty much why I went 3-5-2. So if you've got a plan or a transfer you like doing for Jimenez, I'm not against getting rid of him. The one thing I'll say is I don't think... Will he be consistent from now until the end of the season? I'm sure he'll pick up, in 5 games, probably 2 or 3 attacking returns, maybe even 4, maybe even 5. But I don't think he's going to punish you for selling him. I don't expect to see like 2 or 3 scores of double figures or more. So I think at a stage of the season where there's only 5 game weeks left, Wolves haven't been blowing teams away, I'm not really concerned about the blanks, but him himself has not been kind of topping the stats tables or anything like that. Like this, he's got the same shots in the box as the likes of Greenwood and Martial since restart. So I don't think he's a bad option, and I'm not saying you should sell him, but I wouldn't strongly argue against selling him if that's what you were thinking of doing. But for my team, it doesn't really make sense right now. So the other transfers I'm considering is taking a hit. Now, people will ask me about hits at this stage of the season. Is it worthwhile doing it? Obviously, with less game weeks left, there is less time to repay that hit. And you don't really want to be in too many situations from now until the end of the season where you're trying to make that hit be repaid in 1 game week, because that is difficult. But that being said, I am considering, rather than doing a single transfer, using that Salah money to pump it up front instead. Now, I need to see how Harry Kane plays against Everton, but I think he's done okay since the restart outside of that Man United game. Let's see what he's like against Everton. But it is Bournemouth up next. That is a defence I wouldn't mind targeting. So the plan would be to do Calvert-Lewin rather than Jimenez. That might change because Calvert-Lewin's fixtures are slightly better. One of those 2 to Harry Kane. And then Salah would go down to one of the ones I've mentioned, basically. Pulisic, Antonio and Foden. I'm not against Pulisic at all. I think he's a nice pick. But I think they've got Sheffield United and Crystal Palace in the next 2. So I'd probably take a punt on Antonio or Foden instead and get Harry Kane up front. Now, I probably wouldn't captain Harry Kane. I think having him is probably differential enough against Bournemouth. But then that gives me the option up front to change him to another big hitter if I want to. So Arsenal's fixtures are good towards the end of the season. Maybe I want to get Aubameyang back in. After Bournemouth, for Spurs, guess who plays Bournemouth next? Jamie Vardy, who just scored against Crystal Palace. So maybe I do Kane to Vardy in Game Week 35 and target Bournemouth again. I'm not saying the defence has been awful, but it's not great, and it never really is that good, which is part of the reason they're going down. It's not that they can't attack, it's also that they can't defend as well. So that's an option I consider. It's a little bit different. Is it a risk to go without Liverpool players? I'm not captaining them anyway. If Salah goes and gets a hat-trick, obviously that will hurt. But the way they're playing, the fact that I see Liverpool rotating a few players, and again, it doesn't have to be Salah, But when you take any players out of that first 11 that's done so well, it does change how Liverpool play, and they're probably not quite as good. So that's what I'm considering doing. I don't know if I'll go through with it, but a -4 for Salah to Antonio, Pulisic or Foden, Calvert-Lewin to Kane, it really does tempt me, and it gives me that flexibility. It gives me 2.8 million in the bank as well, I think. And it lets me go to Vardy. It maybe lets me get Aubameyang back in as well towards the end of the season if I want to target those Arsenal fixtures and I'm not happy just with Nketiah, which I probably won't be if I can't kind of tell myself that he's going to start every single week. So that's the transfer I'm thinking of doing. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think about getting rid of Salah? Is Harry Kane just a punt too far? Is it a bit of a nostalgia pick? And what do you think of captaincy? Kevin De Bruyne versus Fernandes. What are you thinking for this week? That's it for this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, make sure to give it a like. Much appreciated. Really helps out the channel. Hit this subscribe button right here if you haven't already, so you know when all the other videos and live streams are going live as well. And just to this side as well, there's some more videos if you want to watch a couple more. Otherwise, good luck in Game Week 34, and I will catch you again for another video soon. Cheers all.